Hey man, let's talk about something that's going to completely shift how you approach women and relationships. The power of silence. Now I know what you're thinking. Silence? Really? That's your big secret? But hear me out, because what I'm about to share with you goes against everything you've been taught about attracting women. Most guys think they need to talk more, impress more, prove themselves through words. But the truth is the opposite. The most magnetic men in the world, they understand that silence isn't empty space. It's power. It's control, it's respect. And today, we're diving deep into why keeping your mouth shut might be the most attractive thing you can do. Look around you. Every guy is trying to fill every second with words. They're explaining themselves, justifying their actions, talking their way into friendships, into relationships, into respect. But here's what they don't understand. Women don't respect men who need to explain everything. Women respect men who are comfortable in their own skin, comfortable enough to let silence do the talking. And by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why silence commands more respect than any words ever could. So buckle up, because we're about to break down the psychology behind why less really is more, and how you can use this ancient masculine principle to transform how women see you. Let's get into it. The psychology behind silence and respect. First, let's understand what's really happening when you choose silence over words. See, there's something called the scarcity principle, and it applies to everything, including your words. When something is rare, it becomes valuable. When something is common, it loses its power. Think about it. The guy who talks constantly, who explains every thought, who fills every pause with nervous chatter. What message is he sending? He's saying his thoughts aren't valuable enough to be selective about. He's saying he needs validation, he needs to be heard, he needs approval. But the man who speaks only when he has something worth saying, who lets silence hang in the air, who doesn't rush to fill every gap, that man is communicating something entirely different. He's saying his words have weight, his thoughts are precious enough to be shared selectively. And women, they pick up on this instantly. Women are biologically wired to assess men for strength, for leadership, for the ability to provide and protect. And one of the key indicators of these qualities is self-control. A man who can control his tongue, who doesn't need to prove himself with words, who can sit comfortably in silence. That man demonstrates the kind of inner strength that women respect and are drawn to. It's not about being rude. It's not about ignoring people. It's about understanding that your silence can communicate more power, more confidence, more mystery than 1,000 words ever could. Sign 1. You let others fill the uncomfortable silence. Here's something you need to understand about human psychology. People are uncomfortable with silence, especially in social situations. It makes them nervous. It makes them feel like something's wrong. So what do? They start talking, they start explaining, they start filling that space with words. And here's where most guys mess it up. They think they need to rescue everyone from that uncomfortable moment. But not you. You understand that discomfort is power. You let that silence sit. You let other people scramble to fill it. And what happens? They reveal themselves. They show their insecurities, their need for approval, their inability to handle pressure. Meanwhile, you're sitting there calm, collected, in control. And women notice this. They see a man who doesn't need to fix everything, who doesn't need to make everyone comfortable, who's secure enough in himself to let things be uncomfortable. I've seen this happen countless times in group settings. The quiet guy, the one who doesn't feel the need to contribute to every conversation, he becomes the most interesting person in the room. Why? Because everyone else is performing, everyone else is trying to prove something, but he's just being. And that being, that presence, commands respect. Women will literally lean in to hear what you have to say when you finally do speak, because they know if you're breaking your silence, it must be important. This isn't about being antisocial. It's about being selective about when and how you engage. Sign 2. You don't explain yourself unless asked. Most men are walking around constantly explaining themselves, explaining why they made a decision, explaining why they feel a certain way, explaining why they did or didn't do something. But here's what you need to understand. Explanation is often justification, and justification comes from insecurity. Confident men don't explain themselves unless directly asked, and even then, they keep it brief. They make decisions and they stand by them. They don't need everyone to understand their reasoning. They don't need approval for their choices. They operate from their own internal compass, and they're comfortable with other people not getting it. When you stop explaining yourself to women, something powerful happens. You stop seeking their approval. You stop trying to convince them of your worth. You stop performing for their validation. And ironically, this makes you infinitely more attractive because you're demonstrating that you don't need their understanding to feel good about yourself. I'm not saying be a jerk. I'm not saying ignore genuine questions. But there's a difference between answering a direct question and volunteering explanations for everything you do. The man who explains less is perceived as having less to prove, and the man who has less to prove is the man who commands respect. Sign 3. You ask questions instead of making statements. Here's a counterintuitive truth about silence and respect. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is turn the spotlight back on the other person. Instead of talking about yourself, instead of sharing your opinions, instead of trying to impress with your knowledge, you ask questions, and then you listen, really listen. Women love to talk about themselves, about their thoughts, their feelings, their experiences. But most guys are so busy trying to impress that they miss this completely. They're waiting for their turn to speak instead of actually engaging with what she's sharing. But when you ask thoughtful questions, when you show genuine curiosity about her perspective, something magical happens. She starts to see you as someone who's genuinely interested, not just someone who's trying to get something from her. She starts to respect your ability to listen, your emotional intelligence, your confidence in not needing to be the center of attention. And here's the kicker. The more she talks, the more invested she becomes in the conversation because people love talking about themselves. But here's the key. You're not just asking random questions. You're asking questions that matter, questions that show you're paying attention, questions that demonstrate you're actually thinking about what she's saying. This kind of engaged silence, this active listening, is one of the most attractive qualities a man can possess. Sign 4. You're comfortable with awkward moments. Awkward moments happen in every interaction. But most guys panic when things get uncomfortable. They rush to fix it, they make jokes, they change the subject, they do anything to make the awkwardness go away. But this is exactly the wrong approach. Comfortable silence, especially during potentially awkward moments, demonstrates incredible inner strength. It shows you're not controlled by social pressure, you're not desperate to keep everyone comfortable, you're secure enough in yourself to let moments be what they are. Maybe she says something that creates tension, maybe there's a disagreement, maybe someone makes an inappropriate comment. Most guys will immediately try to smooth things over, but not you. You let the moment breathe, you let people sit with their discomfort, and this communicates something powerful. It says you're not responsible for managing everyone else's emotions. Women respect this so much because it shows emotional maturity. It shows you're not needy, you're not codependent, you're not going to bend over backwards to avoid conflict or discomfort. And in a world full of people-pleasing men, this makes you stand out like a beacon. Sign 5. You don't try to win every argument. Here's something that separates boys from men. Boys need to win every argument. They need to prove they're right. They need to have the last word. But men understand that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just let it go. When you don't engage in every debate, when you don't feel the need to correct every misstatement, when you can hear someone say something you disagree with and just nod and move on, you're demonstrating a level of security that's incredibly attractive. This doesn't mean you don't have opinions. It doesn't mean you don't stand up for yourself when it matters. But it means you pick your battles. You understand that not every hill is worth dying on. And women respect this wisdom. They respect a man who's secure enough in his beliefs that he doesn't need to defend them to everyone. I've watched guys talk themselves out of attraction by arguing about trivial things, by needing to prove they're right about everything, by turning every conversation into a debate. But the guy who can just smile and let it slide, who can agree to disagree, who can change the subject instead of escalating, that guy demonstrates the kind of emotional intelligence that women find irresistible. Sign 6. Your body language speaks louder than words. When you embrace the power of silence, your body language becomes even more important. You're not hiding behind words. You're not distracting with constant chatter, so everything else about you becomes amplified. Your posture, your facial expressions, your presence. Silent confidence has a specific look, shoulders back but relaxed, direct eye contact without staring, calm breathing, no fidgeting, no nervous energy. You take up space without apologizing for it. You move deliberately, not rushed, not frantic, just purposeful and controlled. Women are incredibly attuned to body language. They can read your energy before you even speak. So when your silence is backed up by confident body language, the combination is incredibly powerful. You're communicating strength, security, self-assurance without saying a word. But here's what's crucial. Your silence needs to come from confidence, not insecurity. Shy silence is different from powerful silence. Awkward silence is different from comfortable silence. The difference is in your energy, in your body language, in your presence. One of the most powerful aspects of strategic silence is the mystery it creates. When you don't feel the need to share every thought, every experience, every opinion about yourself, you become intriguing. Women start wondering what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what makes you tick. Mystery is incredibly attractive because it engages her imagination. Instead of laying everything out for her, instead of being an open book that she can read in 5 minutes, you become a puzzle she wants to solve. And the beautiful thing about this is the more she tries to figure you out, the more invested she becomes. Think about it. The guy who tells you his entire life story on the first date. Where's the mystery? Where's the intrigue? Where's the reason to want to see him again? But the guy who shares just enough to be interesting but leaves plenty unsaid, he's the one she thinks about later. He's the one she wants to see again. This isn't about being secretive or deceptive. It's about understanding that revelation should be gradual, that getting to know someone should be a process, not a data dump. And silence is what creates that space for gradual discovery. Now, this doesn't mean you become a monk. It doesn't mean you never speak. It means you become strategic about when and how you use your voice. When you do speak, it should be with purpose, with intention, with something worth saying. Speak when you have something valuable to contribute. Speak when someone directly addresses you. Speak when the situation genuinely calls for your input. But don't speak just to fill space. Don't speak just to be heard. Don't speak just because you're uncomfortable with quiet. When you do break your silence, people listen because they know if you're speaking, it matters. Your words carry weight because they're rare. Your opinions matter because you don't share them constantly. Your jokes are funnier because people aren't tired of hearing you try to be funny. This is the power of selective speech. This is why silence makes you more respected, more attractive, more magnetic. You're not background noise. You're not constant chatter. You're signal, not noise. When you start implementing this, when you start embracing silence as a tool of attraction and respect, everything changes. You stop trying so hard. You stop performing. You stop seeking validation through words. And something beautiful happens. You start attracting people who are genuinely interested in you, not in your performance. Women start seeing you as someone with depth, someone with substance, someone who doesn't need their approval to feel good about himself. And this is incredibly attractive because in a world full of needy, attention-seeking men, you become the exception. You become the guy who's comfortable in his own skin, comfortable with silence, comfortable with not being the center of attention. And paradoxically, this makes you more magnetic than any amount of clever conversation ever could. But remember, silence isn't empty. It's full of potential. It's full of power. It's full of respect. And when you learn to wield it properly, it becomes one of your most attractive qualities. So start paying attention to when you speak and when you don't. Start noticing how people react to your silence. Start embracing the power of less and watch how everything changes. Because at the end of the day, attraction isn't about what you say, it's about who you are. And sometimes the most powerful way to show who you are is by saying nothing at all. The strong, silent type isn't just a stereotype, it's a timeless archetype of masculine attraction. And now you know why silence truly is golden, especially when it comes to earning respect from women. So embrace it, use it, master it, and watch how the world around you transforms when you understand that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is absolutely nothing. The quiet confidence, the comfortable silence, the strategic pause. These aren't weaknesses, they're strengths. And when you start using them properly, you'll understand why silence makes women respect you more than any words ever could.